Hello, you're welcome onto my channel today, and it gives me great joy to observe you are viewing this video. I'm Professor Olayinka Akanle. I'm a lecturer in the university. On this channel, I do a number of stuff, but sociology and research are very central to what I do on this channel. Meanwhile, if you have not subscribed to this channel, can you go ahead and click subscribe on your channel or on your screen right now on this channel so that you might be subscribed to the channel. So anytime I drop new content, you might be alerted. Click subscribe on your screen right now. Today, the video is on modernization theory. Modernization theory. This is a very popular theory of development. Well, some say it's actually about growth, but growth is not synonymous with development, but is a necessary factor for development, but not a sufficient factor for development. So if a theory explains growth, then we can, in a way, see it as a theory also explaining development in a way. So some people say, well, modernization theory is a theory of growth and not development. But I think modernization theory allows us to also have an in route to development in terms of explanation, since development is a process. So when we teach development or social development or even sustainable development, modernization theory is a major theory we teach or we explore in order to explain. So therefore, don't forget this point I want to make. Listen very carefully. Modernization theory is both diagnostic and prognostic. Diagnostic in the sense that it wants to explain the social reality or the reality of a society in context of development or growth. Want to explain, want to examine why societies are in their current state. And prognostic in the sense that the theory wants to, give solutions to societies, want to prescribe. That I would say is prescriptive. It's one of the criticism against this theory. Anyway, want to prescribe how societies can move towards modernization and ultimately development or growth and development. So, modernization theory actually can be described as a theory that wants to explain the socioeconomic process of progress. That's a very strong point. It's a theory that wants to explain the socioeconomic process of progress. Wants to give societies the socioeconomic, pathways they have to follow in order to have modernization, and from there growth, and from there development. So it's like I always say that development is a process; it's not a destination. But modernization theory is arguing that for societies to be considered developed or to have experienced growth, then they must modernize. And modernization for modernization theory is equal to growth and development. So modernization theory sees modernization as the ideal. At that time, modernization theory takes Western societies as ideal, as standard in terms of explaining growth and development. And this is a very popular theory in the sense that the theory, sees the modernized society of Western world based on their key elements, key trajectories as standards that must be followed for societies to be considered modernized. And for societies to be able to grow or develop, then they must modernize and become carbon copies or exactly like societies of the West. Western societies, the societies we call developed society. But I always argue that there is nothing like developed society or underdeveloped society. Societies are ultimately all developing because development is not a destination, but a process. And a very important point I want to make again is the fact that modernization theory sees external influences, factors that are external to societies as positive in driving growth and development. That for societies to develop or to grow, they must copy, they must reflect some elements, some factors of some so-called developed society. That the more they look like those modernized or modern societies and developed societies, the more they are considered to have grown and to have developed. So, modernization theory gives a kind of a linear progression, stage by stage, stages that societies must follow in terms of linearity to be considered developed. And you will see this later in the Rostow's stages of economic growth. Or even when you look at Lipset theories of modernization, we consider these two major strands of development as or as landmark or key examples of modernization theory. Rostow's stages of economic growth and Lipset's theory of modernization. For Rostow, societies must pass through 5 unique stages. And I will give these stages later on as I proceed in this video. So, and Lipset also, you will find Lipset. I will also explain the Lipset ones to you later on as we proceed in this video. So, the importance of external factors, are very central to modernization theory. And it also looked at the need for social and cultural transformations of society. And why is this very important? For modernization theory, traditional institutions, traditional systems are considered obstacles, hindrances to growth and development. That is, traditional institutions like families, economic system, religious system, political system, and other institutions of society. In traditional societies, modernization theory considers these institutions, traditional institutions, norms, values, kinship systems, as traditional belief systems, as hindrances to development. Therefore, for societies to modernize, to grow, to develop, they must transform their culture, they must transform their social systems to be exactly like those in Western societies. So traditional institutions are seen to be obstacles, hindrances, and anti-development. That they are disablers of development rather than enablers of development. And the less traditional society is, the better the chances of development, or the more developed those societies are considered. And for modernization theory, modernization is equal to or leads to development. That any society that is not modernized from the perspective of Western societies, then that society can never develop and cannot be said to develop. The higher the modernization, the higher the chances of development, according to modernization theory. This may not necessarily be so, but these are the arguments of modernization theory. So, for modernization theory, industrialization is key. Urbanization is key. Traditional institutions must transform. There must be free market economy. The forces of demand and supply must drive the consumption and production activities. Capitalism is key for them. So free market economy is a major characteristic, prescription of modernization theory. So the Western societies that have this, modern technologies, all the societies that have this are considered the ideal, that there must be growth of cities, industrialization, machine-enabled production, and modernization, generally speaking. So these are the major prescriptions and major diagnoses of modernization theory. So if you look at the Rostow, which is one of the most popular strands of modernization theory, Rostow believes that the societies that will develop must pass through 5 key stages. We call this traditional stage, traditional society stage, preconditions for takeoff, takeoff stage, and drive to maturity and age of high consumption. These 5 stages also believes, and the high consumption is the highest stage, while traditional stage is the first stage. For Rostow, and the traditional societies must they lack modern technology. They are essentially agrarian. They practice agriculture as the mainstay of their livelihood. These are this traditional stage. And these stages societies cannot move to development if they remain at this stage. It talks about preconditions for takeoff. If societies would then take off towards growth and development, there are certain things that must happen, including changes in infrastructure, education, and the social structure must change and transform from being traditional, and they must prepare All of these changes are very important conditions for preparation, for industrialization. Because there cannot be development, there cannot be modernization, there cannot be growth until this infrastructure, traditional infrastructure, education, social structures are transformed, so that they can accommodate, they can drive industrialization, which can be considered as a precondition for growth and development. Then the takeoff stage. So if societies are able to meet the preconditions for takeoff, then rapid industrialization will come in. They will industrialize massively, and there will be a shift in social values, towards efficiency and progress. Until this is done, they cannot move to the stage 4, which is very important, which is drive to maturity. That is, the society is matured enough to move towards growth and development, which means there will be diversification of the economy, from traditional agricultural agrarian system to even industrialization system to even more openings. For example, within modernization theory, a mono commodity, monoproduct economy can never develop. Then there must be diversification, and there must be technological advancement. More technology, cutting edge technology must come in, then improvement in the standard of living of the people. Then from there, this society will then move to the fifth stage, which is the highest stage, age of high consumption. In which case, all of these four conditions, stages, will then lead to a buoyant economy, buoyant society, where people have capacity to spend money, higher per capita income, mass, production processes that are very automated, 24 hours productive activities in a way that we then have high standard of living, that people then have high purchasing power, and there'll be advanced technology, and there'll be massive consumer goods and services, high level of consumerism. And this is the fifth stage that Rostow gives as the fifth level that societies must get to be considered modernized and to be considered to have grown and ultimately, developed. And if you take Rostow by one side and you move to Lipset's theory of modernization, for Lipset, democracy is central to growth and development. Societies that are not democratic cannot be said to be developed, cannot be said to be modern, cannot be said to have grown, and also political stability is a major condition for modernization, for growth and development. So while Rostow gave 5 stages, Lipset gave democratization and political stability as key elements of modernization and of growth and development. But if you look at all of this, you can see that these are not essentially very true. We have many democratized societies that are still essentially battling with basic things of life that cannot be considered, growth. And again, modernization itself, as a concept and as a practice, is epistemologically and ontologically very challenging, because what is modernization? What are the elements? Modernization, we're talking about postmodernism. So you cannot equate modernization to development. At the same time, you cannot take a society as a benchmark for development. United States of America, Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, European Union, all of them are battling in one challenge or the other today. And how are you saying they are developed? And there are some countries that you are considered underdeveloped who have some more qualities that we can say that they have high standard of living. If you go to the Middle East, even the United States is moving towards Middle East now, as President Trump is moving towards that direction. Even EU is truly behind the many Middle Eastern countries, and like that. So all societies are developing in the final analysis. There is no developed society because none is there yet. America does not have the highest benchmarks. America has its own problem. The United Kingdom has its own problem. Australia has its own problem. European Union has their own problems. So all countries are aspiring. And again, if you look at the Lipset, there are many countries today that are not democratized. They are better than many countries that are democratized based on human development index, all the indicators. And political stability tends to be very key. But for Rostow, these are the 5 stages. And if you look at them, they are moving towards they are having the same logic, the same argument, but overall, there are key criticisms of modernization theory. One major one is that it's very Eurocentric in the sense that it's using countries of Europe, America, and the rest of them as the ultimate ideal, as the ultimate destination, ideals, which in itself is very problematic. So it's very Eurocentric, and again, it's linear, saying societies must move, must do this, must follow a particular process to be considered developed. If you look at the experience of the Asian tigers, or even the experience of China, to use as a single category, the development trajectories of China and the Asian tigers are essentially different from the development trajectories of the United States or the EU. So countries follow different development trajectories. What took the America about 100 years to achieve only took China about 1 or 2 decades to achieve. So China did not follow the development trajectory of the Western world. Yet China today is not, I stand to be corrected, is qualified to be considered as a developed country. It has overtaken many countries and is only struggling because of the power geopolitics of classification. That's why they are still saying United States is bigger in economy than China. China is standing at par, soldier to soldier, with the United States today. So the development trajectories of countries are different. And so you cannot use a country's or a region development trajectory as a prescription. So development don't follow a linear process as unlike what is prescribed by modernization theory. Then there is over celebration of external factors, that external factors from the West, from the so-called developed countries, must flow into these underdeveloped countries, quote and unquote, that the local internal processes are inhibitive, prohibitive, disabling to development, that the external factors must diffuse into underdeveloped countries, and underdeveloped countries must copy and be like developed countries. That's actually problematic. Like I would show you in the dependency theory video, that the external factors are not always positive in terms of their impact on countries that are considered underdeveloped. And internal factors, like traditional factors, are not necessarily always prohibitive, disabling to development. So internal factors also have their strengths, and external factors also have their own limitation. And it's too prescriptive to say, okay, this is what some countries must do to develop, to grow. It's too prescriptive. Development, you can't prescribe trajectories of development. Like I've shown you the case of Asian tigers and China. And also, it's too economic in terms of equating development with economic growth. Though that's the focus, but development is wider than economic growth, and development encompasses growth, encompasses economic growth, but it's far more than economic growth. But it's very important for us to acknowledge that this theory gives us, inlet into explaining development, and it has its own merit. I'll show you. Till I see you in my next video. Please subscribe, and bye for now.